are going to start a lecture series comprising of class 9th CBSE syllabus for chemistry. So we'll be starting with the first chapter, that is matter in our surroundings. So before going to that chapter, let's first discuss what chemistry is, because this is something which is new to you, right? So let's define what it is. So chemistry is a branch of science which deals with the study of composition, structure and properties of matter, and the changes which the matter undergoes under different conditions, and the laws which govern these changes. So it's all about matter, right? Its composition, its structure, and its properties, because depending on the properties of matter, we decide about its application, where to use it and how to use it. And then we'll be studying about the changes that you can see in matter depending on different conditions applied to it, like pressure, temperature, and many more, and the laws which govern these changes. Okay, so from this definition itself, we get the key word for the first chapter, that is matter. So the question is, what is matter? So before going to the definition of matter, let me ask you guys one simple question. Just look around yourself. What do you see? You can see the yummy food you have every day, your house where you live in, or the air you breathe, though you can't see it, but you can feel it, right? Or a single drop of water, or a grain of sand. Everything in this universe is made up of material, which in scientific term is called matter. So, we can define matter as follows. Matter may be defined as anything that occupies space or have volume or possesses mass, and the presence of which can be felt by any one or more of our five senses, like taste, sight, hearing, or smell. Okay, like for example, you all have seen how an agarbatti looks like, right? And when you burn, what happens? Even if you are putting an incense stick in one room and you are standing in some another room, you get this good fragrance of it, right? So even there, it is all about matter. So let's go and dive into the details of it. Now, before going ahead, I want to tell you guys that whenever I'm mentioning a note, please understand that that point is an important point and you guys need to remember that. And second thing is that wherever I am giving the write-ups, when there is a mark in when it is written in yellow, do remember that those are the keywords or important words that you need to remember. So heat, light, sound, electricity, magnetism, etc. are not considered as matter, as they are massless and do not occupy space. Because as I discussed before, the definition of matter is something which has mass or occupies space or have volume, okay, or which can be felt through five of our senses. But these are things which do not fit into our definition. So these are not considered as matter. Now, we can classify matter into two categories based on the physical aspect and the chemical aspect. So I'm going to just focus on the physical aspect in this chapter, the first chapter. Then we'll be focusing on the chemical classification in the upcoming chapters. So you need to focus in just these parts. These parts. This is what you are going to focus in this first chapter. Okay, so based on the physical aspects, we can classify matter as solids, liquids, and gases. Okay, so before going to a detailed study about the three states of matter, that is solid, liquid, and gas, we have a question. Is matter continuous or particulate? What do I mean by continuous and particulate? Like if I take a piece of wood, like if I ask you, it seems to be continuous, right? Whereas if I take some amount of sand in my hand, it seems to be particulate with quite a lot of grains of sand. So is matter continuous or particulate? And the answer is matter is not continuous, but it is made up of small particles. So to understand that, for say, consider a glass piece, okay? So it seems to be continuous, right? But then once you drop it, it breaks into small pieces. And further, if you break those pieces, it again is divided, right? So matter is not continuous. It is something which is having a particulate character. And these particles which make up all the matter around us are either atoms or molecules. Now I know atoms and molecules are new terms for you guys. Don't worry about it. We'll be discussing about this in the next chapter in very much detail. So you just need to understand at present that matter is made up of a lot many particles. Okay, and these particles differ from one matter to another. Okay, so depending upon, like if I say, if I consider a wooden piece and a glass piece, then the particles which make up the wooden piece are different from the particles which make up the glass piece. And now the question is, how small are these particles? Actually, these particles are extremely small, which cannot be seen even with a powerful microscope. Okay, so to understand that, let's consider a simple experiment. Most of you might have seen this substance, right? This is potassium permanganate. Okay, so what we are going to do is we can dissolve it in 100 ml of water, say. Okay, so it gives you a deep violet color like this. Okay, now what you do is you have taken 100 ml. Now take 95 ml of water and take 5 ml of this solution and add it into this glass. Now you can see that the color has become lighter. Now it looks quite pinkish. Okay, now repeat the same process, that is take 95 ml of water and take 5 ml from this glass and add into this glass. So you can see a very slight tint pink color. It's so light that if you need to see the difference of it, if you need to see the pink color of it, you need to keep a plain water, like a glass filled with plain water in order to compare, right? But what you see is you are just taking 5 ml and adding 95 ml of water, but still that color seems to be there. And then further, if you do that, still you can see a pink tint, which shows that actually this is made up of immensely small but large amount of particles, right? So matter is made up of extremely small particles which cannot be seen with even a powerful microscope. And what we actually see is an aggregate of these tiny particles. Now, this is an important concept. You are going to study about the characteristics of the particles which make up matter, and that is given according to kinetic theory of matter. So I am making it very brief and crisp. You just need to remember 3 points. That is, there's space between them, and they are in continuous motion, and there is attractive forces. So what I mean by these 3 points, like you can see in matter, when you go for the particles which make up matter, there is space between the particles. There is space between them. Then these particles are always in continuous motion. Okay, and the third thing is every particle experiences a force of attraction due to the surrounding particles uh, it has. Okay, so just remember these 3 points: space between them, there's space between them, then they are in continuous motion, and then they experience attractive forces. That's the 3 points that you get to know about the characteristics of the particles which make up matter according to kinetic theory of matter. Now, obviously you got those 3 points, but you need a justification that yes, actually these characteristics are being seen in these particles, right? So the first point is space between these particles. To understand that, let's consider one simple experiment. Just take a tumbler filled with water and try adding some sugar into it. Okay, so what actually happens is, though it's not a very visible thing, but obviously there will be a rise in water level. Actually what happens is, those sugar particles start, as you dissolve it in, those sugar particles start to occupy the spaces between the particles of water. And as a result, you see a slight rise in water level, which proves that there is space between particles. Then the next point, that is the continuous motion of these particles. I have mentioned this thing even before, that when you light up an incense stick in some room and then you are standing somewhere away, and within like seconds you get that, like, that fragrance. How does that happen? Actually, it's the particles of that incense sticks. As you burn it, actually the temperature rises, the kinetic energy becomes higher than normal, and though they are not, even if they are not heated, they are in continuous motion, but due to burning, the temperature rises, their kinetic energy increases so much, and their motion also increases, and they diffuse in the air and it reaches you guys. And that's why you can feel that fragrance, or you can smell that fragrance. So that proves that there's a continuous motion of those particles. Okay. Then the third point is, there is an attractive force between the particles. Actually, you can understand this by comparing two things. One is a chalkstick and another one is an iron nail. Actually, try breaking these things. What do you see? You see that the chalkstick can be broken very easily, whereas it's very difficult to, or actually impossible to do it for an iron nail. Why does that happen? Actually, the thing is, the forces of attraction between the particles which make up this chopstick is very low, whereas the forces of attraction of the particles of this iron nail is very strong. And that's why you are not able to break it, whereas you can do it very easily in case of a chalk stick. So I guess you are convinced with the three characteristics of the particles of matter. So let's just revise what we learned today. So we started with what matter is, right? So matter is anything which occupies space, possesses mass, or something which you can sense through your five senses. Then matter is made up of extremely small particles which cannot be seen with the naked eyes. Then the particles of matter have space between them. This is the first character of the particles of matter. Then the particles of matter are never at rest but are continuously moving, right? This is the second characteristic of the particles of matter. Then particles of matter attract each other, and this is the final and last property or characteristic of the particles of matter according to kinetic theory of